Someone once asked me at school, what are you going to do with your life? And I wasn't quite sure. I just blurted out I wanted to climb Everest. From there, I just created a list of things I would want to do before I died. I had this list of about almost 50 things, and Everest was on top of that list. I've knocked off probably about close to 40 things I wanted to do, and then I just kept adding to the list as I discovered more about the world. So I grew up in an area called the Cape Flats in Cape Town. It's quite known for drugs and gangs. My way of getting out in that situation growing up was to go to the mountains, and I could just experience nature. What I started doing was climbing all around southern Africa, and then just from there just started pushing the limits. On one particular trip, I hitchhiked back home. Out of nowhere, these guys just appeared and they wanted to know where the money was, and I said I had no money. They wanted to pull me under the bridge, and I knew what that meant. They'd probably kill me. I started fighting back, and the guy just took out a gun and walked straight up to me, put the gun against my chest, and he pulled the trigger, and the gun just went click. I could see the bit of shock on his face. He took the magazine out, he stuck it back in, and he put the gun against my head, and he pulled the trigger, and the gun just went click. All of them just looked at me in horror, and one guy said in Afrikaans, "Leave him, he's with the spirit." I just walked away calmly and then picked up pace, and then when I was about 100 meters from them, I battled into a sprint, and then it's only then when the adrenaline kicked in I realized this moment I had a guardian angel and had this real moment of peace and awareness that there's a God. And since that day I've always had that sense that someone's looked after me. I think growing up I had a real strong sense of justice and awareness of the inequality that existed around me, and became a political activist, initially along the lines of peaceful protest. But as things got worse in South Africa, I became more militant, burning tires, barricading, trying to fight back. 15th October 1985, we were part of a huge group on a protest march. All I remember that day was seeing this big truck driving down the road, and I just saw the gun, and then just mayhem, gunshots everywhere. As I was running, I just felt this whiz past my ear, and a voice in my head just said, "Go left." And I went left, and another bullet hit someone to the right of me. I dived under a car. I just lay there watching the ongoing gunfire. That day, it still haunts me. At the end of apartheid, 1994, everything opened up, and then suddenly South Africa was allowed to get a permit to climb Everest. The very first expedition happened in 1996, very controversial expedition because of all the deaths. And then they put another expedition together in 1998. 15,000 people applied, from what I understand. From there, they were going to select 2. I just remember when they announced my name, I just slumped to my knees and just cried. I was just so emotional. We left Kathmandu, and then you had 5,000 meters driving on the Tibetan plateau. We just looked out, and there was this unbelievably colossal mountain just rising out of the Himalayas, and that was Everest. And it was actually quite frightening. It's one thing to have a dream, it's another thing to be faced with the reality of that dream. I realized in that moment that I need to just climb because I love climbing and not get caught in the summit fever. And everything on Everest plays in your mind. It's a psychological game. There's avalanches coming off the north face. You're on the glacier and there's creaks and groans. Then there's hidden things like high altitude sickness, your pulmonary and cerebral edema that can cause you to die. I didn't summit. I got just above Camp 2. I developed quite a bad cough, and I was starting to cough up fluid, which is the early signs of pulmonary edema. So I would love to have summited, but I had no real great expectations to summit at all costs. I was really happy that I'd climbed that high. I'd never been that high. To look out and see the curve of the horizon was just unbelievable. I think my experiences when I was younger and my bucket list was like, I want to just live my life to the fullest, because I realized that life could be taken away from you in a second. The person that most inspired me was Desmond Tutu. He got me to understand my place in South Africa and how I could help to make a difference. I was very, very fortunate to be invited to develop a leadership program. When I left to come to New Zealand, he actually wrote me a personal letter acknowledging the work that I'd done in South Africa, and I was just blown away. I'm very happy in Rotorua. I'm working for a really amazing organization at the youth center with people that are really passionate about making a difference in young people's lives.